we're going to go through a process and build a little website using AI. We're using Replit here, and it's going to let us edit pages and have a simple, clean, super fast little website. So let's dive right in. I like to start with a product requirements document. And to do that, to make those, I've built a little tool. You can use it if you'd like, prd.opeachy.ai. This is a free tool. And we're going to put in my general product description, my project idea, and it's going to generate the PRD that we can give to Replit. I've already written up the product idea here. We're going to paste it in. And we're going to generate that PRD. Okay, we have our PRD here with our overview. Let's just take a quick peek at what we have. Material design, card elements, WYSIWYG, page management, create, delete, edit, title, slugs, meta, just what I described. It's a very simple website stack that we're building. React for dynamic UI, that's fine. Bootstrap for responsive design. I'm doing Python Flask because it's really, really fast for this sort of website. I've tested it out and it's a lot faster in most cases than a full TypeScript setup. So this is just a fun little project to give us a test here for this demo. And then we have data management. Now notice here that because I'm using a PRD, I did not describe a database in my initial post, but it went ahead and found that we need a database for this, which is correct. It is something that we need. And then I also have this changelog instruction in here. This comes automatically. It helps your Replit or whatever building tool you're using, helps it build a changelog so we can keep track of the project, and then it comes up with instructions here. But now you can just download the markdown. So if you don't know how to save a markdown, or you don't have an application that lets you easily save a markdown file, if you copy and paste the text, you can just click this. It will download the markdown file for you, and you can give that to Replit or wherever else. Now we have our markdown file. We're going to go over here and provide that to Replit, and then we're going to give it instructions. Okay, we're going to add this do not start making changes here, and we're going to add this at the end. This is because sometimes it will ignore one or the other. I found putting it in twice works really well. It's pretty consistent. You can use this process in a lot of builders. I'm just doing this demo in Replit because I've built a ton of little apps in here, so it's the one that I have handy. Okay. So it read the file. This is kind of us checking to make sure it can actually understand the file. So let's imagine I don't have an idea or a preference here. Let's see what it recommends. Okay, so it has these questions. I like to just copy these down and put them in here and answer them. I just put a little dash. So I got my answers here. And then I'm again going to follow up with here. I didn't add it twice. That may come back to bite me. We're going to see. All right, we have our response here. Let's read through it. So looking through this, it recommends Quill. We're going to take a look at that here in a second. That seems like a good idea to me. And it's sticking with our stack here. Great. I don't like this. Although, I think for the sake of this demonstration, we're going to let it do that because this is something that will probably happen to a lot of you, that it'll just decide, or maybe your application is already built and it decided to use server-side memory and you need to convert it here. So we'll leave it there and let it do that so I can show you how to fix it later. And then that works well. So it's considering that it wants to build this multi-tenant architecture from the start. I'm cool with that. That's why I brought it up in the conversation, just to see what it thought about that. for the minimum viable product. Routing system, perfect. File structure that separates the content logically, that's good. Site management, page builder, page specific settings, preview for the created website, publishing mechanism. Okay, this looks good. And again, if I were doing this not for this particular example where we need to show how to integrate this sort of thing, I would change this right now from the start, but I'm gonna leave it and show you how to fix it later because that's a common thing people run into. Now, before we get started here, before I tell it to go, let's take a look at this quill.js. It's over here. And it looks like it'll do fine. It really doesn't matter what we're using for this example. But one thing that you'll find is the AI doesn't always know the latest documentation for a product like this. So what we're going to do is give it the documentation. Now you can just copy and paste different documentation files into it, which is a fine way to do it. This tool I'm going to show you isn't quite ready for production. It's a tool I built for myself and I'll have it ready for you all shortly, but it will basically take this documentation and turn it into a markdown file that we can give to the AI. So it's over here, AI Ready Docs. And we're logged in here. I'm going to give it a new crawl. I'm just going to give it this example. And I want to turn this down to 1. So all I'm trying to do is get this page and anything linked from this page, just one step down. And it's going to start the crawl here. This will take a little bit of time to run through all the pages. And then it'll give me the ability to download that. So we'll come back to that shortly. Okay, so we like all this. Let's go ahead and tell it to start. And we're off to the races here. We're gonna let it build. I'm going to watch these files and see what it starts creating as we go here. It's gonna ask me to approve the plan after this. Okay, so it looks like it's decided to do the initial prototype and it is skipping out on a couple of these things. That is fine with me because we're gonna explore adding some of them in later, which is a situation a lot of people run into needing to do. It's an amazing preview. If you want to see what it's building on the back end, you can click this. Sometimes it'll show here. Today it's not. Right now. I found that sometimes after it builds the prototype, it'll load in. It just depends on the day. Looks like it's building some fun little mock-ups here for itself. This is just a mock-up that it's making. We can see right here it's created the change log, and that was what we got out of the product requirements document. This will be very handy later as you grow your application. You can have it check the change log, edit the change log, update it, things like that. You can see the files here. It's creating. Checking in on it. Let's see what we've built now. Got that sidebar that it mocked up. Moving right along here. 7 minutes in, we got a lot going on here. It's gonna start doing its debugging here. See what we ran into. So it does appear that it's kind of gone in its own direction and set up primarily a TypeScript site, which is not what I asked it to do. For this example, we'll leave it there. If I find the performance to be horrible once we launch this, which it often is when a site is built this way, I would actually go back up here and go to the original checkpoint, which is here. And I would roll it back and disapprove this plan and reiterate how I want this built. We'll see how the performance is. This is just a demonstration anyway. All right, it's stopped to ask me right here if I can see this. It does appear to be loading. Let's open that up in a new tab. Now, something I found is that when it asks these questions, it often is pretty specific about what it wants to know, because it may be checking one fix. And so if you go do a bunch of other stuff beyond this, you might run into issues that it plans to address, but trying to address them right now can run it off course. So let's take a look. It wants to see if we see the dashboard view with pages, global settings, and media library cards. Pages, global settings, and media library. Great. Those are there. So we're not going to go further with it right now. I'm just going to answer that question. Okay, so it's confirming visibility, but it also isn't proceeding with another task right here. So let's just take a look at what we have. Got the pages. Page not found, so we know the router isn't set up properly. Can't edit a page yet, which I'm not surprised. It's pretty rare that it would actually get this right on the first run. Media library page isn't found. So the routing isn't set up. Looks like these quick actions aren't happening at all. Looks like a fun framework though. Looks like our global settings are here. Navigation. Perfect. I'd like to be able to see a page, and then we will go add our next set of example features. All right, so we're sending it this message. I want it to debug the issue first. So this is why I'm asking it to look through, find the files it needs to edit, and then tell me all of those specifically. This lets us make a nice list of what it needs to fix without actually making the changes and having it just go wander around. This focuses the AI on its purpose here. See what it says. Okay, so it's missing that. Okay, so it's noticing those things here, missing a lot of routes. Okay, so now it knows exactly what it has to change, and I've given it the instructions to make only those changes. Okay, so it said it was going to edit routes, which it is. Let's say it gets off track. It sometimes ignores, like if it starts editing files that it didn't outline here for you, which in this case is app and routes. It's editing different files beyond that, and you're concerned that it's going off track. Clicking this pause button doesn't always work. It sometimes is in the middle of a process. So what you do is you click the pause, and then you send it a message immediately after with a specific thing it has to think about. You can't just say stop. That doesn't tend to work. What you can say is something like, I'm concerned about why you're editing that file. Can you please pause your work and explain why you're editing that file? And it'll generally, that triggers it to think versus just stop. It doesn't have a response to that very well. So click pause, give it a question about your concern, and ask it to explain. Okay, so here it sees an error and it's checking the dashboard. Here's the potential error. Looks like it just messed up a route for a second. Okay, so it's on track. Now we're chugging along here pretty heavily in this app build. We've done a lot of stuff. Got a pretty fun little prototype going along here, and because we are being very structured, this has so far cost us 50 cents in commits, or checkpoints. And that is why we have it make outlines before it does work. Outlines don't cost us credits, but they define the work really well and allow it to be super efficient in its operation so that we stay on track. Again, we're checking here. Media library is a page it said it wanted to make. Based on this, media library, custom code, analytics, and page view. Media library, custom code, analytics, and page view. So it's following our path really closely here, which is great. And we saw that these were placeholders in the application earlier by hovering over it. Looks like it's editing that page right now. I restarted it. By hovering over them, they didn't have any path to take. Let's refresh this. That path isn't working still. That path isn't working. And that path isn't working. That's okay. We'll look at those later. See if we can view a page. And we cannot view a page. I'd like to be able to view a page before we proceed. So we're going to check this out. We don't have to give it this whole URL, just the home. Let's copy this. Now this is a bit of a risky post here. I didn't ask it to explain the fix first. We'll see if it can come up. This seems like a pretty simple fix, so we'll see if it can come up with the content correctly. If I see it going crazy, we'll chase it down. Which makes sense in the routes here. This one looks like it might be going a little rogue here. Let's watch it closely. It is in dashboard interface, so we may be on track still. Okay, it stayed close to on track here. Let's take a look and see. Ta-da! All right, we have a page. Looks like we need to work on styling and stuff, but that's later. We now have a functional website page. The builder needs to be worked out, which is probably why the design looks weird. We will address all of that later. What I want to do next is make it so this section is protected so that only a user that's logged in can see this, and everybody else can see the front end pages. Now, we've already gone over the fact that this just created server storage for all this content. We want to move it over to a workable database so that we can have the ability to authorize users, add users, change users, things like that. We're going to start with the ability to log in. Now we're right here. We've done a lot in this chat. So there's one last thing I'm going to have it do in this chat while it has this memory. And then for this next task, we're going to move over to another chat. This next step is very important for making sure that now your app is built, you can follow the structure very easily. We want a documentation folder, and this is going to allow us every time we start a new chat to refer back to the documentation folder and then have it add things to the documentation folder after we've done a set of changes. This is, as your app gets bigger, this becomes very important for keeping the app organized, keeping the AI on track, making sure it knows what to change, how to change, everything like that. It's great. Doesn't matter what it calls it, you just need to remember it every time you come in. Now it'll make the documentation for us. Great. Made the folder, and the README coming up next. After the documentation is done, we're going to set up a database for storing all this information and creating user auth so that this panel, this site management right here, and all its sub pages are locked behind a user password. Well, it looks like it has the opinion that it has created an admin user, which it hasn't yet, but it's of the opinion it did. This is very detailed documentation it's intending to create here. It's documenting the content segments like this. Super helpful. This is always funny to me. It's making documentation. It's like, I see the application is running. It seems to be working correctly. I would sure hope so, because it's not supposed to be changing anything about the application. We're all operating in the docs file here. These don't have any impact on the running of the application, or they shouldn't if it's following instructions. If you're looking to understand your application a whole lot better, you're welcome to read through the documentation it creates, and you'll get a really good picture of what it's trying to do and how it considers this application to operate. It's up to you if you want to do that. It could be tedious reading, but you'll know a lot more about your application and how the AI is thinking if you do it. It's really getting a lot of documentation put in here. That's pretty cool. I feel like it might be going a little too far here for our example needs. So I'm going to have it stop for a second. The way it's acting here, I think it's filled up its memory in this chat anyway. And it starts to bog down like this. That tends to be the case. And we have plenty of documentation here. It definitely went deep into the documentation dive here. There we go. Now we paused and we're good. So right here, we're going to stop this and go to our next step. We have plenty of documentation here. It doesn't even need to be this detailed, but it went crazy with it, which is fine. Again, we did all this with $1.50 in credits there, so that's not too bad to get all this built. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please give me a like and subscribe so you can see more just like it.